Sex? You want sex? Sure, I'll give you books about sex. But I have to start with my father's book, Great Sex Christian Style. It is half a guide to why Christians have to be okay with the queer thing, and the other half is a sex manual that is very well done. So, 2 thumbs up, and nice work, old man. So, you gave a wide range with just general sex, so I'll just give some of my favorite books. And I'll start with Robert Anton Wilson's Sex, Drugs, and Magic. Because, as Wilson points out, for most of us, sex is going to be the way that we get into magic. It's the easiest, most approachable path. Just like for most of us, psychedelics is the only way we're going to get to that ineffable essence. So you can get there by meditation, but most of us won't. So this is our pathway into magic for most of us. Another one that I want to mention is from Betty Dodson, Sex by Design. And Betty Dodson was an old friend in New York, in fact, but she was the mother of the masturbation revolution. She wrote one of the first things ever about masturbation and then continued throughout her long and illustrious life to educate, especially young women, about masturbation. And this memoir is her coming of age in New York, and it's just, I love memoirs. It's an amazing piece of work, and it's a great look at the sexual history in the United States. So, love that one. Another one is Colin Wilson's The Misfits. This is one of the first books I ever read about sex, and Colin Wilson is, the great essayist who just wrote so many books on so many topics. So his take on how many artists and great minds in human history have used sex to get themselves to another level is really a fascinating piece of work. So big fan of that one as well. Then, of course, we have a famous one, Mating in Captivity by Esther Perel, Unlocking Erotic Intelligence. This is a classic for a reason. Also, I will add that I once asked out Esther Perel, and she said yes. No, she didn't. She completely ignored me. Anyway, someone who didn't ignore me was Dorian Sagan. This is Carl Sagan's son, and Lynn Margulis is his mother. And she was one of the people who helped come up with the Gaia theory about the entire Earth being a living organism. So she's wonderful. She's a great scientist, and he's an amazing science writer. This is their book on what is sex and the science of sex, which is such a fascinating topic because you hear about how the eye has evolved 7 or 8 times in evolutionary history. Sex has evolved many more times than that. Whatever sex is, that roll of the dice, chance and probability that it is, it's incredibly important to evolution and life. And it keeps popping up even when it disappears. So, what is sex? Who knows? After that, Margaret Mead, Sex and Temperament. This is a classic about sociology of 3 societies and how they deal with their intimate affairs. Margaret Mead's a great writer. She's a great thinker. There is some pushback that a lot of her sources were lying to her because they found out that the white woman would just listen to anything that they say, and, put in her books, and so they would just kind of screw with her. But it's still really good thinking and a classic for a reason. Speaking of classics, because I'm in France and because she's a classic, The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir. And then finally, let's do a poetry book. Physics on All Fours. Isn't that a title that makes you want to just run out and buy this? I'm not sure how easy this is to find. This is my buddy Nick Herbert. He is almost 100 now. He was one of the hippies who saved physics, which is a great book, because he was one of those radical countercultural physicists trying to look at the actual philosophical implications of quantum and what that means. And so, because it's such a deep subject, he approaches a lot of it through poetry. And so this is his book on quantum mechanics and sex and things like that. It's a wonderful piece of poetry. If you find anything by Nick Herbert, I would read it. And so there's some stuff on sex. Let me know if you have any favorites of your own, or if you have any more fields you want me to move in the direction of to let you know more books about sex.